Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. It's time for a custom build no post today. So classic one, customer has just built this computer. Excuse the cable tidying, we'll talk about that in a sec. They've just built this computer and it doesn't post. So yeah, worst feeling ever. You've bought all your new bits and pieces, you've put it all together, you've assembled it, you press the power button, it lights up, there is fans, there is RGB, but there is nothing on the screen. So they've gone through everything they can think of. I chatted with them on the phone about it and they've got their head screwed on straight and they couldn't get it to run. I had a quick look at it when they brought it in and I noticed a couple of things that were wrong with it, but those were not causing issues. But let's go over it all. So the cable tidying, we can excuse this because they've been troubleshooting. When you're troubleshooting, all your cable tidying goes out the window because you're having to pull everything out and stuff like that. So this can be fixed another time. Anyway, firstly, I'm going to point out the bits that I thought were wrong with this. Spoilers, I don't think that is what was causing the problem, but I'll show you anyway, just because by pointing out little things that are wrong, other people can learn about other things to look out for when they're building. So once again, I often get flack in the comments for ripping on people's builds and stuff like that and going, ah. But the reason why I do it is so I can teach other people what to be mindful about. I'm not bashing anyone, I'm just pointing out things that could be improved, could be different, or just, little pitfalls, traps for young players, as they say. Let's take a closer look. So first thing of note is the memory configuration. On most motherboards, you use the second and fourth slots first, counting away from the CPU. And this is denoted by, if we take a look right down here, and if I focus, you can see on the silk screen here, that's the silk screen is the writing on the motherboard. You see there it says DIM A2 and DIM B2. Those have a little asterisk next to them. That denotes that those are the first two slots that you should populate. Now, most of the time, having your memory in the wrong slots doesn't prevent post. There are some motherboards that won't post if the memory is in the wrong places. However, it's not very common. Vast majority of boards will post whatever arrangement of memory you give it. However, you might not have the most opportune layout of your memory. For example, we likely won't get dual channel mode with the memory in this configuration. So we need to be specifically in slots 2 and 4 to get 2 modules dual channel on this board. So that is something that we will move. However, as I say, generally in the vast majority of cases, this will not stop post. So I don't think that's our problem. So next thing I spotted is down here. Now this might have caused an issue. However, I already know it hasn't caused an issue because I actually checked when the customer brought it in, just in case I could be like, there's your problem. There you go. Take it away. Good job. Bye. So down here, we've got a couple of fans plugged in. This fan is going into chassis fan 2. However, this one here, that's plugged into a pin header, not a fan header. So if I just disconnect this guy. So as you can see, we've got a fan header here, but this guy is some weird proprietary pin header. That might be for infrared sensor, or it might be, sometimes this is an Asus motherboard and sometimes they have weird proprietary connectors for optional front panels you can buy and stuff like that. It's not actually labelled on the silk screen so far as I can tell. I suspect that the customer mistook it for a fan connector because it says there CHA fan 2, chassis fan 2. Like there. So easy mistake to make. This is actually referring to this connector here. But yeah, these two are not the same. So they had a fan plugged into here. So it's hopefully this has not done any harm. I can't think of any reason why having a fan plugged in there would cause any damage to the motherboard, but you never know. So that is something of concern. So again, we're pointing that out. Watch out where you're plugging stuff in. Just double check that you're plugging into the correct headers. So everything else, apart from being a little bit spaghetti, seems to be absolutely fine. We've got another couple of fans plugged into headers up here. That is all A-OK. And everything else is plugged in. Our ATX connector is in properly. And we've got our CPU power cable is also plugged in correctly. So everything seems to be all right. So what's the problem? Well, I'm going to correct these two issues and then we'll start it up and we'll see what it does. So in order to get to the memory, I just need to take the water cooler out of the way. So this thing is only held in with 2 screws at the moment where troubleshooting has been occurring. Again, you can put in all the screws properly later on. For now, this thing's just got a couple of screws holding it in. So it's also worth noting, this is some really cheap, nasty RAM. No offense. So it's DDR4 2400, pair of 8 gigs for 16. So I know we've got an i7 10700K in here. So this is probably this memory is a bit naff and needs to be changed for something better. I believe that the 10700K will appreciate a noticeable performance improvement by upping this memory. We're probably leaving performance on the table with this stuff, but it should work. So again, it's worth noting, just because you're using cheap parts, that's not necessarily the reason why it doesn't work. Even cheap parts should work. But again, suspicious RAM. We're going to keep an open mind about that. Let's get it plugged in into the right place. So because this is an Asus board, we've also got single end latching slots, which are always muddy when you're plugging modules in. So just make extra certain that your modules are in fully. All the latches should line up when they're closed properly. So just make sure those are in, right? Okay, that's fine. We've got some RGB up there. I'm just going to unplug that just for good measure. Can't imagine that's causing an issue, but I just want to be certain. Okay, yep, CPU power is in. We'll leave those fans unplugged for now. We don't need fans to post. And let's try it out. Right, power on. Power on. Okay, so as you can see, we've got power to everything. The first thing I'm noticing is we should have some diagnostic LEDs lighting up down here as it goes through post. And we're not getting anything out of those. Haven't seen a peep out of them, which is a bit concerning. So that is a worry. That leads me to believe that there's a fault with the motherboard or the CPU, just something really low level and fundamental. Nope, it's not giving me anything. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to drop the graphics card out and plug it into the onboard video just for good measure. I don't think that's going to help us here because we're not seeing any signs of post at all. We're not getting as far as it being a video issue, but we'll take the graphics card out just in case. Then after that, I think my next move is actually going to be to strip this thing and bench test it. So let's try no graphics card. Unplug that. So one of the nice things about an Intel build is Intel CPUs, as long as you don't have an F series, so either an F or a KF, you've got onboard graphics on your CPU, which means you can just unplug your graphics card and plug your HDMI cable into the motherboard. Most AMD CPUs can't do this, so it's a very handy party trick when you're doing diagnostics, just being able to just plug into the onboard graphics and see if you get anything out of that. Alright, so we've powered on. Again, no sign of any diagnostic LEDs, which troubles me. I'm going to get a beep speaker. So system beep speaker usually comes with the case or the motherboard, one or the other. I'm going to plug this into the motherboard and just check if we're getting any beep codes from it. Never know. I want to do some redoing with some of the wires here. This is a very common cable tidying error where people bring the ATX cable up out of this port. Well, they bring everything up out here and then go back into these back ports. The only thing you really need to use this guy for is your graphics card power cables. That's what that hole is for. Everything else can go around the back of the case and just be out of sight. Right, we're not getting anything here. Power off. This motherboard has a really bizarro front panel pin out, and I don't like it. I might actually have to look up a manual to double check the speaker placement there, but that'll do. I'm going to do a BIOS reset as well. I did already try this when it came into the shop as well, just in case. However, I shorted the clear CMOS pins on the motherboard. This time, I'm taking out the battery. Lots of people can argue with me over which is the best way to do it. In my experience, just take out the battery. Because taking out the battery, you remove power from the system entirely. It has to reset. It has to, because it has no power. Whereas the clear CMOS jumper, you never know. You never know if you're supposed to hold it down or whether you just momentary it. I've seen it where you momentarily short the clear CMOS pins and that does nothing, but then you remove the battery and that does work. So I just removed the battery. So yeah, I'm going to do that. Back in a moment. And in goes the battery. All right. Let's turn it on again. It's almost certainly not going to work, but we'll try it anyway. Still not getting anything from those diagnostic LEDs. I don't like that at all. I don't like that one bit. Like nothing. I've got a horrid feeling this motherboard is stone dead. But yeah, we'll see. I'm pulling the board out. We're pulling the board out. We're going to bench test it. Nearly forgot. We'll try a different power supply just in case we're getting punked. Brand new Corsair power supply. Not expecting this to be the problem, but I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't check. So keep in mind, of course, by plugging in a different power supply, we've also cut off the drives and things like that as well. So if we do get a result from this, this doesn't necessarily mean a bad power supply. It just confirms that it's a power issue. So we'll need to investigate further if it actually works this time. Right, CPU, ATX, not necessarily in that order. Onboard graphics, let's try it. We've got no power on the CPU cooler. That's fine. I don't care about CPU cooling right now. It's not exactly going to overheat if it doesn't turn on. No, that still looks like nothing to me. Yeah, no, it's not power supply. Again, if we were getting power cycles or any kind of signs of life, I would wait and see, because perhaps it might be RAM training. But we've got no signs of life at all. All we've got at the moment is the motherboard RGB. And the motherboard RGB will come on for like 5 VSB, I think. So that will come on for anything. Okay. This is the depressing bit where you basically have to strip the whole computer to bits. And if you've just built it all, then sad face. But unfortunately, you've just got to get on with it. I'm going to take this CPU cooler off as well. While we're doing diagnostics now, we're going to work with just a test cooler, because I want this guy out of the way now. And water coolers are a pain in the ass when you're doing diagnostics. One of the disadvantages of them. Okay. CPU is pasted and looks like it's correct. I'm just going to have a quick nosy at that before I actually go any further, just in case I see anything horrifying and go, oh, well, there's your problem. Oh. There's paste everywhere here. We'll clean all this up. Holy shit. Okay. Well, there's your problem. That's a lot of bent pins. I'm just moving the camera around just so you can see that from multiple angles, just because, yeah. Oof. That's a very big oof. All right, yeah, motherboard out. This is going to be a motherboard recovery job now. The CPU got dropped into the LGA, is what happened. You're putting in the CPU, you fumble it, you drop it, and the corner goes and goes onto your LGA. Okay, so the board is out of the computer. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Now, I have fixed bent pins on an LGA before. However, this is the worst one I've ever attempted, and I give myself I don't even want to make an estimate as to what I think my chances are. There's a lot of work to do here. Look, even up in the top left, we've got a couple that are just stray in the top left corner there. This is the worst one I've ever attempted. I'm going to take a swing at this because if we can save it, we save a 180 pound motherboard, which is probably about $180 to $200. So I'm going to take a swing at it because no guts, no glory. But yeah, this is as bad. This is as bad as it gets that you would bother attempting. Some points of interest. Obviously, we've got a lot of pins that are all going in the wrong direction that we've got to straighten out. However, my main concerns are that guy there. Look at the lower part of my tweezers. This guy here. This guy here. You can see those pins are gone. They're snapped off. They're gone. Now, not every pin in the array is mission critical. Many of the pins are power or ground. Some of the pins might be going to PCI Express lanes that we can live without, or other non-critical things that we can live without. So missing pins are a real bad sign, but they're not an automatic game over. So we're going to do what we can with this. So I'll quickly demonstrate my technique on a couple of pins. And then I'm just going to get on with this because there's a lot of work to do and it's going to take me a long time. So let's see. We'll pick a couple of easy ones. I'll see if I can do any just with the camera in this position so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Then we're going to have to go for another camera angle. Now I've got to back out slightly. Hold up. So as you can see, the bottom right-hand side of the array points to the top left. And the top left-hand side of the array points to the bottom right. So we need to get all of those pins pointing in the correct direction. So let's just take... God, where do you even start with this? Let's take this guy here. And I'm just going to use the point of the blade just to bend him in the direction of his fellows. There we go. That's one done. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to get them all pointing in vaguely the right direction. There's a little bit of margin for error. They just have to be roughly in alignment because when the CPU sits down on top of them all of them get pressed down into the array anyway. So a little bit of error is okay. They've just got to be roughly in the correct direction. Whereas we've got a lot of these that are bended flat or way over in another direction. So... right, I'm going to bring the camera out to give myself as much space as possible now. And yeah, let's see if I can. Let's see what I can do with this. Remember to breathe. I know it still looks like a mess in there, but trust me, they're coming into alignment. All right. I think I'm going to try that. So here's your before and after shots. Place your bets now. I think that's a pretty heckin' good job. Quite frankly, I think I've given us the best chance of success here. However, there are a couple of pins that are just gone, and there are a couple of pins where the tips have snapped off. So the luck of the draw whether they actually connect or not. But if anything is going to be a success, I think that will be. Let's drop a CPU in it and try it. Place your bets, everyone. Ooh. CPU, DRAM. We have diagnostic LEDs. Come on. Go on, make me smile. All right. Let's take a RAM stick out. Let's BIOS reset as well. We're off at the plug. Just going to leave that for a minute. I don't like that really fast power cycle. CPU fan has carried on spinning this time. Never mind. That doesn't look like RAM training to me. So I think one of our dead pins is memory. Let's try some different memory combinations. And let's try a different memory module as well for good measure. I'll have to grab a known good memory module just in case we're getting punked by this cheap-ass RAM. I very much doubt we are, but you never know. I'd be very happy if it was RAM now. I think we're still stuck on DRAM. It's got the amount of time it takes me to grab a memory stick out of another computer. No, that looks like a no-go to me. Okay. So we're going to take the CPU out and inspect the pins and see what they've done after having the CPU pressed down on top of them again, and see if there's anything we can do about it. The other thing to bear in mind is that at this point we don't even know if the CPU or the motherboard was damaged by those bent pins. Unfortunately, I don't have a Gen 10 Intel motherboard in the shop, which sucks. So that means that I can't actually check if the CPU is good or not. Yeah. All I can do is just try again and see if we get lucky on the second attempt. I think this is my last attempt, though. There's too many pins there that are possibly deal breakers. If it was just one or two, then we could say, okay, well, let's try straightening it again. But there are too many just missing pins and pins that are really messed up. And it could be any one of those. So if it doesn't start this time, I think I'm throwing in the towel with this Mobo and we're replacing the board. Right, Power on. CPU power. Stand by. And we're looking for these diagnostic LEDs. CPU, DRAM. Now, I'll try the memory stick in the other slots just for good measure. No, it's dead, Jim. New motherboard time. So I think I gave that a sporting try. As you guys saw, we got from a total disaster to a slight disaster, and we went from absolutely nothing to actually getting CPU and then DRAM diagnostic LEDs. So on a less damaged socket, possibly if we didn't have those snapped pins, there's a good chance we might have had a success there. However, in this case, it looks like the damage to that socket is just too severe. Big sad. So we're going to go and get a new motherboard for this. Right, well, I've just spoken to the customer about this to find out what we're going to do next, and we're replacing the board. So I'm waiting for the customer to source a replacement board, and then we're basically just going to rebuild and reassemble, and that'll be it. However, while it's all fresh in my mind, I did do a little bit of research just to find out what's involved in replacing an LGA socket. And it's absolutely possible. It's not a DIY job, and by that I mean it requires what is effectively BGA rework. So to do it, you would need a board heater or a board preheater, which is essentially it's a bed about, I don't know, sort of slightly bigger than a motherboard, I guess. So this sort of size, that has a ceramic heating plate on it, and you would put the board on top of that heating plate with a foil cutout underneath the board that just has a window like that, so only the bottom of the chip socket is exposed to the heat. And then you get your hot air station with a big ass nozzle on it that fits over the top of the entire chip socket, and you preheat the board, and then when the board is up to preheated temperature, you put your hot air on top, and then you go up to reflow temperature. And then that brings the whole chip socket up to reflow, so you can then remove it. Then you clean up all the pads on the board, you put your new one on, and once again you bring everything up to reflow temperature, hot air on, reflow, and then that flows the new socket on. Take it all off, and that's it. You've got yourself a new chip socket. Now, if you've got the equipment and experience already for this, then it's a routine job. I don't have the equipment for that quite yet. I know the theory of operation on all of it. I just don't own the equipment. So if this was like a £700 motherboard or something super exotic, then I might be inclined to tell the customer, hold up, I'm going to go buy the equipment. However, for a £180 Asus Tough Gaming motherboard, I'm not going to buy the equipment for this job. However, I will probably be investing in the equipment to do this in the future. And maybe the next time we're stuck in this situation, you might see me doing a socket replacement. However, that's not a job for today. In the meantime, I'm putting the CPU back in the socket for safekeeping. I'm going to put all of this to one side, and we're going to come back with a new motherboard.